After quickly assessing the situation, Captain Sully Sullenberger and First Officer Jeffrey Skiles realized that without engine power, they're not going to make it to any nearby airport. It's a rough ride aboard a 737 on descent to New Orleans. A violent thunderstorm has caught the pilots off guard.
Ask the flight attendants to take their seats.
Flight attendants, please take their seats.
Suddenly, less than 17,000 feet from the ground, the flight becomes all the more terrifying.
We lost power on the engines. I've got nothing.
The plane has enough speed to glide, but not for long. It will rapidly lose altitude as it does. The crew has only one option left.
I guess I'm gonna have to make a ditching here, sir.
They must take their chances and put the plane down on the water.
Taca 110, roger. Whatever you need to do, sir.
And that was about the last communication with the tower. Then we were like 1,500 feet when that was going on.
Dardano plans to put the plane down in the canal directly ahead of him.
Okay. There.
Put it down softly.
The 737 can only stay in the air for another minute. As Dardano looks for a safe stretch of canal to drop the plane in, another option appears.
Look at that one over there.
And then Lopez saw the levee parallel to the canal that we were making the approach on.
Can we put it down on the grass?
Yes, boss.
The levee is much shorter and narrower than a runway, but it looks safer than the water.
That's where we're going to go in?
You got it, my friend. Okay, put the gear down. All right.
But Captain Dardano is still flying towards the water. To have any hope of landing on the levee, he needs to make a sudden and dramatic course correction. That requires a risky maneuver known as a side slip.
So we just had to do a little bit side slip to get into position to make a perfect landing.
It's a move meant for small planes and gliders, not a 47-ton Boeing 737. But it's a risk he has to take.
Agarrate, papa.
Only 700 feet separate the plane from the ground. Without engines, the pilots have no thrust reversers to slow the plane when it touches down. Dardano has an additional challenge. With only one eye, he's unable to gauge depth as he speeds towards the narrow, rain-soaked strip of grass. There's a high cement wall in front of the levee and a steep embankment on the left. There may not be enough room to land.
Watch out for the wing on that side.
I see it. Come on. Aquí te tengo, baby. Aquí te tengo.
Very good. Very good. Very good, Charlie.
El aterrizaje fue espectacular. El
The
avión
landing was
aterrizó
spectacular. The plane landed
como que
so
se lo hubiera llevado
smoothly.
con una mano, o
There
sea,
wasn't even a bit of turbulence.
No hubo ninguna ni media turbulencia.
A perfect
Un aterrizaje
landing.
perfecto.
Between the frigid waters of Cook Inlet and the towering Alaskan mountains, Anchorage International Airport awaits the arrival of a stricken 747.
Northwest 85, we have you on our radar.
The passengers and crew of Northwest 85 are now moments away from an emergency landing.
As I was putting my own seatbelt on, I remember thinking to myself, is this all there is? As in, am I done here? Am I going to be alive when this is over? And I thought about my kids and my husband and my home.
Northwest 85, clear to land. Emergency equipment standing by.
Roger, cleared to land.
The crew still has no idea what will happen when the plane touches the ground.
There were close to 400 passengers in that airplane and a crew of 18, and some of them people that I knew personally, like John and the other pilots in the crew. So waiting was hard.
Okay, everyone, here we go.
Touchdown in 5.
Prepare for impact.
Right!
You got it? I got it.
As planned, on touchdown, First Officer Fagan takes the control column. Captain Hansen guides the front wheels with the tiller. The timing is critical. One false step, and the plane could shoot off the runway.
We got it. Good job, Mike. Good job, guys. So what do we do for encore?
Not that. Everyone in the cockpit was finally able to exhale. And we just went,
Once we were given the signal that it was okay,
Please remain seated until the seatbelt light is off.
I knew that I had to get up and go to that entry door and get these people out of this airplane. We did what we were trained to do. We did a great job.
Controllers can see what the pilots can't.
That's quite the rudder you got there. Must have been a hell of a ride.
Oh yeah, it was a real joyride.
Almost 2 hours after the emergency began at 35,000 feet, all 404 people on board are safely on the ground. The world is watching as Hurricane Hugo churns across the Atlantic. It's a massive cyclone, over 375 miles wide. The storm is marching steadily toward the Caribbean and threatens to hit land in less than 2 days' time. On dozens of islands and along the U.S. coastline, people rush to get out of Hugo's path. But high above the ocean, a team of hurricane hunters is to try to exit out of the storm. The only way out of the storm is back through it. But with only 3 engines running, re-entering the eye wall at this low altitude would be suicidal. Their best hope is the Air Force Reserve C-130, still approaching in the storm.
NOAA 42 to Teal 57. We've had an emergency. We've lost 1 engine.
Once the C-130 passes into the eye, it might be able to fly close enough for the crew to assess the damage.
Teal 57, we're going to need a favor. I don't know if we can climb high enough on 3 engines. You coming down to us?
Roger, NOAA 42, starting our descent.
No sudden moves. They're on us.
NOAA 42, you look like you're still in one piece other than that de-icing boot.
Teal 57, we're going to need another favor. We can't stay in here. Fuel's going to be an issue very soon. Can you help us find a soft spot?
Roger that, we'll see what we can find.
On board NOAA 42, there's nothing to do but wait.
Any word yet, guys? NOAA 42, I think I have something for you.
The Air Force plane has found a possible exit point.
Try the northeast quadrant.
Roger. Northeast quadrant. We'll see you back at base.
Let's hope they're right.
NOAA 42 is going to try to punch through the storm at 6,000 feet. They hope the winds at this altitude will be less destructive.
Set condition 1.
The Air Force crew has chosen the exit point well. There is far less turbulence at this altitude.
That's more like it.
After a tense 20-minute journey back through the storm that nearly killed them, the crew finally escapes Hugo's powerful grasp.
Oh my God. What a day.
A little too close for comfort, if you ask me. Teal 57, we're out, and I think we owe you one.
All part of the service. We'll see you guys back on dry land.
After their harrowing ordeal, everyone on board gets safely back to Barbados. Investigators from the Australian Transport Safety Bureau arrive in Learmonth.
In the cabin, there was quite a lot of damage, mainly to the ceiling panels and the ceiling fixtures.
Investigators hope data from the plane's quick access recorder can shed light on what went wrong. They focus on the fly-by-wire control system.
I'm seeing 2 abrupt changes in the elevator's position at cruise. Looks like that's what caused the pitch downs.
Were those commands coming from the pilots?
Oh, they weren't.
Weird.
Navire 1 fault.
That's not right.
It seems the plane's fly-by-wire system was sending rogue commands to the flight control surfaces.
What the hell is going on?
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Investigators need to hear the pilot's story.
We went through everything that they recalled and anything unusual in the period beforehand.
Describe the flight leading up to the pitch downs. Anything that could have caused these erratic movements.
They had a pretty good recollection, but had no explanations as to why this happened.
And you were getting a lot of faults.
Oh, yeah. There were a few. Have a look for yourself. It's like the plane had a mind of its own.
The A330's post-flight report logs all the cautions and warnings that were affecting the plane. They studied the list, looking for anything that might connect the various warnings.
The first question you have is, what's the common element between all these?
All these errors are connected to Ataru 1.
The ADIRU, or Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, relays important information to the flight computers about the environment outside the plane.
That ADIRU obviously became an important part of the puzzle because it was associated with so many faults.
Look at this. I've never seen anything like it.
They spot something highly unusual.
These are wild angle of attack fluctuations coming from AOA 1.
Angle of attack, or AOA, is the angle of the plane's wing relative to airflow. The higher the angle, the less smooth the airflow over the wing.
And if the aircraft angle of attack gets too high, then the aircraft can stall. So it's a very important parameter.
From over 50 degrees nose up, back to level, then negative 50 degrees.
That's not what the pilots described at all.
The crew testified that the plane pitched nose down twice. They never said it pitched up.
What do the elevator readings say?
10 degrees nose down.
He checks other FDR readings that record the plane's pitch. That data also confirms what the crew reported.
Show me the angle of attack again.
From the flight data recorder information, we could see that the elevators moved in a nose-down direction, about 10 degrees. There was an abrupt rate of change.
The plane did not pitch up. There's no way this AOA data is correct.
What would faulty data like this do to an A330?
I'm not sure, but I bet it's not good. Let's go ask Airbus.
Continental Airlines Flight 1404 is being prepped for its departure from Denver, Colorado. Captain David Butler and First Officer Chad Levang will pilot the flight to Houston. The plane is a Boeing 737, a short to medium-range twin-engine jet that has become the best-selling commercial jetliner in history.
Continental 1404, Denver.
Tower, runway 34 right, position and hold.
Position and hold 34 right, Continental 1404.
Runway 34 right is one of 6 runways at Denver International.
Continental 1404, wind 270 at 27.
Turn right, heading 020.
Runway 34 right is cleared for takeoff.
The controller provides the pilots with a runway wind reading of 27 knots and clears them for takeoff.
Heading 020, cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, Continental 1404.
Suddenly, the plane veers hard to the left. The plane races off the runway at a speed of more than 100 miles an hour. It's completely out of control.
Reject!
The plane hits a steep ridge, sending it airborne. Flight 1404 finally comes to a stop 700 feet from the runway. All 110 passengers and 5 flight crew narrowly escaped death. The captain is seriously injured. The first officer's injuries are minor. The question now is, how could this have happened in the first place? 10 passengers are flying from Cold Bay, Alaska.
We were headed to Seattle. It was a beautiful day. It was clear, no turbulence. Highly unusual, highly unusual.
In the cockpit, Captain James Gibson and his crew have noticed something unusual as well. Not with the weather, but with their plane.
I noticed that the vibration that I was feeling in my feet and the vibration that was in the glass was different.
What the hell? Moose, have a look, would you?
Yeah, you bet.
As Gibson and Gary Lintner wait for Moose Lauren to report back, the vibrations become more pronounced.
I distinctly remember looking down and seeing my control yoke shaking.
Well, screw this. Let's turn around.
The engineer said, I want you to come back and check number 4 engine and see if you can see anything. And just as I looked out the window, the engine went. As the prop came off, I thought, oh crap, it's gonna kill me. It's gonna cut me in two. But it flew forward and then it came back and slapped the engine and then went underneath.
The prop tears a hole in the bottom of the plane.
I gotta go! I grabbed a hold of the cargo net and looked down at my foot. I'm looking straight down at my foot over a hole, straight down to the ocean.
The gash in the fuselage has caused an explosive decompression.
And then, of course, the cockpit gets all foggy, and there's almost no sound. Your eardrums are popped. It's a little disconcerting because the fog and it's quiet. You think, geez, am I dead or not?
Depending on what altitude you're at and depending on how explosive the decompression is, you may have, slightly longer than at other times, but you will eventually die from lack of oxygen.
Junior flight attendant Victoria Fredenhagen springs into action.
After the explosions, I wasn't sure what had happened.
But I got up and got the oxygen walk-around bottle, put that on.
Jim and I got our masks on, and within seconds, Moose came through the cockpit door and said, "Holy crap, we just lost number 4 propeller."
The rupture in the fuselage has damaged critical flight controls. The crew needs to descend to a lower altitude where there's more oxygen. But the yoke is slow to respond.
Jim saw that the autopilot disconnect lights were on, and he reached over and turned the autopilot back on again.
The autopilot can do what the pilots could not.
Wings level.
Steer the plane.
Descending to 10,000.
It's a struggle, but they finally get their Electra L-188 down to 10,000 feet. The passengers are no longer in danger of hypoxia.
It's now safe to remove your masks.
Well, there's, of course, adrenaline running at that point. It just felt good. I think it was just surreal because we were okay.
Reeve Aleutian 8 makes it to safety. The close call is a good example of the dual role that all cabin crews play. China Airlines Flight 120 is on final approach for landing. They're now less than a minute from the runway.
T20, 10.
It's a textbook landing. All that's left for the China Airlines pilots is to park the plane.
Engine start levers. Engine start levers cut off.
With the engines off, they can finally relax.
Hey, what is this? What's happening?
Just when they thought they were safely parked,
Cockpit, ground. Number 2 engine fire.
a radio call alerts them to an urgent danger. Their plane is on fire.
Attention crew on station. Attention crew on station.
Dynasty 120, we are calling a fire truck. Remain standby.
We have wheel fire, please. Slap lever.
The pilots know they need to get their passengers off the plane before flames reach the fuel tanks. But they can't open the cabin doors yet.
Engine fire warning switches. Override.
They must follow an evacuation checklist. Finally, the pilots are ready to open the doors.
Evacuation required now. Required.
No pushing, no pushing. Please keep moving forward.
But it will take time for all 157 passengers to make it to the exit. George Ishizaki is watching the unfolding disaster from inside the airport terminal.
I just happened to have my camcorder with me. I thought, oh my God, what is happening?
The plane has been burning for close to 3 minutes. It could explode at any moment.
Captain, all passengers are evacuated. You're the last one.
Typically, the captain will stay until everybody's off, and he will verify that the airplane is empty.
The pilots have put their passengers' safety first. But now, it may be too late for them.
You're gonna have to climb up to the window. You first.
Sir.
All 737 cockpits are equipped with an emergency escape rope. It's designed to help pilots exit through the side window. But it's no easy maneuver. Then, fire on an airplane can quickly become lethal. Incredibly, on Flight 120, all 165 people on board have escaped unharmed.
I've never heard of any evacuation where somebody wasn't hurt. To get this many people off in such a dire circumstance in a very short period of time with no injuries is miraculous.
Seatbelt, please. Thank you.
Cathay Pacific Flight 780 is cruising at 38,000 feet over the South China Sea. Captain Malcolm Waters and his crew are nearing the end of a 4.5-hour flight from Indonesia to Hong Kong. 165 miles from Hong Kong Airport, the Airbus leaves cruising altitude and begins its descent. And then something goes wrong. The flight computer is alerting the pilots to a problem.
Okay, let's see what we got.
Engine 2 stalled.
The plane's monitoring system indicates there's an issue with the right engine, engine number 2. With no explanation for the incident, Captain Waters reduces power on the engine to idle to protect it from damage.
Idle.
The lowest possible power level while still keeping it running. The pilots prepare to land the Airbus with only one engine. Everything is set for an emergency landing. But then, another alert and more vibrations.
Engine 1 stalled.
Engine 1 stall confirmed.
Things have gone from bad to worse. The monitoring system indicates they've just lost the other engine, the one they were counting on to get the plane to Hong Kong. The monitoring system tells the pilots to put the malfunctioning engine number 1 into idle. They are a minute from touchdown. Then, another alert.
It's overspeed.
It's an overspeed warning, a signal the aircraft is flying too fast. Captain Waters can't figure it out. They should be slowing down. He rechecks the controls. Then he sees it. Engine number 1, which he throttled back minutes earlier, is still running at 74% power. High thrust, too high to land safely.
Too low, terrain. Too low, terrain.
Their speed is over 100 miles per hour faster than normal. So fast, the flight computer doesn't recognize that the pilots are trying to land. Captain Waters pushes the nose down, forcing the Airbus onto the runway. The Airbus is getting close to the end of the runway. Finally, the aircraft comes to a halt just a short distance from the water's edge. They've used up more than 8,800 feet, over 1.5 miles of runway.
Once the aircraft did stop, there's a look of what the hell just happened.
January 2009, US Airways Flight 1549 departs New York's LaGuardia Airport. There are 150 passengers on board, bound for Charlotte, North Carolina.
The aircraft took off uneventfully, and very shortly after takeoff, they lost all engines as a result of birds.
I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and slightly to our right, but still ahead of us, was a line of birds. And they were very, very close, too close for us to maneuver around.
Whoa! After quickly assessing the situation, Captain Sully Sullenberger and First Officer Jeffrey Skiles realized that without engine power, they're not going to make it to any nearby airport.
We're going to be in the Hudson. Brace for impact.
You need to be aware of your brace position. In many, many accidents, the cabin crew are trying desperately to get the passengers into the brace position, but because the passengers haven't read the safety features card, they don't know what that means.
Get your heads down and stay down!
Proper brace position is knees together, feet flat on the floor, body bent as far forward as possible, with arms wrapped under the legs or braced against the seat in front of you.
Your body's going to be thrown forward. So if you can get yourself into that position beforehand, the amount of movement back and forth is going to be reduced and the level of injury will be less.
In the cabin, the passengers prepare for the inevitable.
All the passengers really started kind of pulling together, and somebody yelled out as we were going down.
Be ready at the doors.
The folks at the door says, "We're ready."
Clay Presley does what all passengers should. He stays calm and tries to think ahead.
So I started thinking about, if we're going to crash, I know I need to figure out where the exit rows are. If the water comes in, you need to be able to hold your breath long enough to get to those 4 or 5 rows and get the doors open if you can.
But before anyone can escape, they must first survive a high-speed impact.
Looked like the airplane was going right for the bottom of the Hudson River. Then the airplane popped up, and it was just sort of gently rocking in the waves.
In an instant, the $75 million plane has become an unlikely boat floating down the Hudson River. It's now filling with freezing water.
That water was cold. It was very cold, so your feet are freezing.
You land in the Hudson in the middle of the winter, the water is going to be very cold, and you're going to suffer from hypothermia very quickly. Their feet and their hands will get numb. They're going to be useless.
Passengers nearest the exits open the doors.
I just jumped up very quickly and started making my way to the emergency door. And so I worked my way out onto the wing, just a few steps to start with.
Fortunately, they had slide rafts rather than just slides, so what they were able to do was evacuate passengers into the slide rafts.
In the end, all 150 passengers and the entire crew of Flight 1549 are brought to safety. Another example of how serious aviation accidents often end well.